Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let me make sure I am up. I am seeing green, good. It was like a delayed effect for the seeing the green. And let me check my sound. Make sure my mic sounds nice. And my mic indeed sounds nice. Good. Just for a heads up, make sure you click the notification. I know people say they don't necessarily get the notifications. I do videos all the time. I've tried to narrow this down between 5 and 6, but if I'm being honest, oftentimes I do videos throughout the day. I love doing videos, and I often do videos live. And so I've tried to kind of limit this time frame of those videos to like 30 minutes at the most. But those videos sometimes go for like an hour. I think the one last night went an hour and 30 minutes. Hit the notifications. Please feel free to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content. If you like the video, please like the video. I'm saying that in advance because, yeah, by the time you get to the end of the video. Just to give you an idea of my format, the first part of the video is usually me giving my spiel. I often don't even look at the monitor. At that point, it's just me doing my thing. It's whatever is in me just tumbling out of me. It's that point. It's me giving my perspective. The rest of the video is the audience giving feedback on the perspective that I gave. If I'm giving a video, I may not necessarily see the comments all the time, and I may not necessarily come back to the video later, so I get the opportunity to engage with my audience in real time. Every so often when I do get a chance to see exactly something that somebody says and it jumps out, I respond. But I like that format, even though it makes the videos longer. People have said, dude, it's kind of imposing to see a 30-40 minute video, and I kind of make the point, yeah, I know, but only 15 minutes of it is really me giving my point. So I try to give people that in advance, saying, look, the first part of the video is me, the rest of the video is essentially the audience. Just be aware of that when you see a video that's like 30-40 minutes long. Also, Jordan Sheridan is supposed to be here week after next, and I'm trying to get Tim Canova next week. Him and I have been we've sending tweets at each other and email, but I haven't heard back from him yet. But that's still the plan. So both of them two are in our orbit to be on the soapbox. Both of those shows should be amazing. I have a video coming up after this one that I want to talk about Sanders not supporting Tim Canova and why that might be the case. Why in one term did he support Canova but not the other? What's changed? Oh, I want to get into that. I really want to get into that. I don't know this as a fact. I'm going to spitball. And I've said before, I can spitball and pull it out my ass with the best of them. But I'm stuck with this certain reality. Nothing else has changed. What has changed? One thing. Canova challenged the cheating, and Sanders did. And is it possible that challenges the cheating put too much of a spotlight on what took place in 2016, and Sanders would rather not associate himself with it? Is that what it is? We can talk about it in another video, in the next video. In this video, I want to talk about something that's important. Press freedom. Let's talk about press freedom. I'm a lefty, and you wouldn't necessarily be even being sane to call me in some respects a libertarian in a lot of my policies or a lot of stuff that I think. I want to be left to my devices. Now, me taking that position of wanting to be left to my devices is not just this kind of natural thing. I don't think people develop it in these just kind of natural ways. Clearly, I started with a certain workable point of view of the world as a kid, and as I grew up, that workable point of view as experiences and everything else, and those things have left indelible marks on me in which this is where I am. I think I can't even trace why I'm this way. It's kind of besides the point. Still, I am this way. The press needs to be free. In fact, if you don't have a free press, you don't have a free country. It's just how it is. And going beyond just the free press, if the press doesn't have access to information that the government, of what the government is doing, meaning if the government can hide and conceal these things as state secrets, and if the government can attack the press, then you don't have a free press. And it goes back to my first point. If you don't have a free press, you don't have a free country. There is no such thing as a representative government. There is no such thing as a democracy without a free press. Flat fact. Flat fact. These parties, both, you've heard my argument. The problem is not one or the other. The problem is both. The problem is both. Both of them have a certain workable point of view of the world that is, for all intents and purposes, almost the same, which is minor differences between those two things. Both. In an interview with Obama says, yeah, a few years ago I would have been a conservative. That's honest, because he is, for all intents and purposes, a Republican. In the same way that Republicans are off the fucking spectrum. They're off the spectrum. If you're talking about Europe, Democrats are right-wingers. They're far right-wingers. But you come to America, and they're supposed to represent the left. Okay. This recently came up with the Trump administration. And it is an attack on media. And it needs to be understood as such. Department of Homeland Security compiling database of journalists and media influencers. Influencers. This sounds a lot like the FBI calling Black Lives Matter an identity organization, an identity extremist. Identity extremists. Let's take a look at the story, and I'll tell you what I mean when I say both. It's not one or the other. It's both. You're going to have some people who try to cast this as, oh, look at these Republicans cracking down on journalists. It's not one or the other. It's both. Obama was terrifying in this respect in the way that he would go after media. The media was howling that Obama was destroying democracy in the way that he was to go after media. The attacks on Julius, on Snowden, on trying to put Snowden in prison, going after Assange. Do you understand that Obama put more people in prison for the Espionage Act, whistleblowers, after promising to be this transparent president? We're talking about Trump right now, though, so let's take a look at Trump. Department of Homeland Security compiling database of journalists and media influencers. The details of the attached request of information, however, outline a plan to gather and monitor the public activities of media professionals and influencers, and are enough to cause nightmares of constitutional proportions, particularly as the freedom of the press is under attack worldwide. An attack is not hyperbolic. Every day, journalists face serious consequences, including physical violence, imprisonment, and death. A few days ago, Committee to Protect Journalists launched its annual Free the Press campaign to raise awareness about imprisoned journalists throughout the world. On May the 3rd, UNESCO will once again mark World Freedom Day to inform citizens of violations of press freedom, a reminder that dozens of countries around the world publications are censored, fined, suspended, and closed down, while journalists, editors, and publishers are harassed, attacked, detained, and even murdered. To bring that point home, six journalists shot by Israel during Gaza protests. They weren't shot because they didn't know who they were. They were journalists. They had their press badges. They were shot. They did this because they didn't want people covering the massacre that was taking place. They didn't want people to get across the carnage, the murder, the disaster, the breaking of human beings, because you're holding this apartheid state and you're doing everything that you can to keep this apartheid state intact, even if that means murdering and shooting journalists. We don't want people reporting the story. If there are no eyes, nobody can see. My point is the person is right. And by the way, and make more of a point, look at this. Talking about worldwide. God damn it, get out the way. President Obama wants a Yemeni journalist to be stuck in prison for embarrassing the United States. He got the guy locked up in a Yemeni prison. According to a report by The Nation, by Jeremy Scahill in The Nation, on February 2nd of this year, President Obama called Yemeni President Abdullah to express concern about the potential release of journalist Abdullah Haider Saeed from prison. Shay is a Yemeni journalist who had done a lot of reporting on America's war on terror and Al-Qaeda itself. He has interviewed Al-Qaeda leaders, even some that America have been hunting, and his reporting has been embarrassing the United States. Glenn Greenwald explained the background story. On December 17, 2009, President Obama ordered an airstrike using Tomahawk missiles and cluster bombs on a village of the Al-Majala in the Yemeni southern Ibn province. The strike ended in the lives of 14 women, 21 children. At the time, the Yemeni government outright lied about the attack, falsely claiming that it was Yemen's Air Force which was responsible. This embarrassed Obama. And the response to this, Obama wanted the Yemeni journalists, because he was embarrassed by accurate reporting of what was taking place in his country, he wanted them to keep him in prison. Yes, journalists are under attack around the world. That's the point I'm getting at. Let's keep going. Meanwhile, the United States government, traditionally one of the bastions of free press, is about to compile a list of professional journalists and top media influencers, which will seem to include bloggers, podcasters, and monitor what they're putting out to the public. What could possibly go wrong? My question is, why are you doing this? Why? Why? To what end? Why are you compiling this information about journalists and media influencers in this way? The point of a free press means the press has the capacity to challenge the government. And in fact, it is the thing that challenges the government. How can you, as the American public, hold government accountable if you don't even know what government is doing? Now, the whole free press thing in and of itself, I attack American press often because I say they're biased in their point of view. Bias doesn't necessarily mean that they're in on it. It's very possible they could be useful idiots. They grew up in this country. They were hired in a job. They were hired in a job because of who they were and the point of view to which they had. So before they even went out on the airwaves, it was already decided upon. They understood the quantity that they were hiring before they hired the person. So what they put out on the airwaves, they already know is going to take a certain disposition, a certain point of view. My point here is these people were born and raised in the United States, inundated with the same level of propaganda like everybody else in the United States, and it's very possible that they hold that particular workable point of view that they're given and espouse into the world. They don't have to be in on it. They can be incompetent. They can be useful idiots. Now the question becomes, if these people have the capacity to get actual information, would they present that information? Do I want a situation where they will be harassed, they will be attacked, or they will be, I guess, blacklisted if they produce that information? No, I don't. No, I don't. And the federal government should not be in the business of writing down the names of journalists and influencers. And again, for some nefarious reason. Because understand, they wouldn't do it if they didn't have a reason for doing it. And understand what I mean by the reason. The reason doesn't necessarily have to be a good reason. Clearly, they want to be able to influence and crack down on a certain perspective. And they're looking at the stuff of these people are giving the media and the world a perspective that we don't particularly like. We don't like this. The reason why we crack down on RT is because we don't like the perspective that it gives. It gives a perspective that deviates from the perspective that we're okay with. We don't like that YouTube. We don't like that all these channels come out and you have these influencers who are giving the public a perspective. Real news. Actual information. Things that pertain to it. Things that the government is doing. An honest perspective. Just telling the truth. You can understand that that's somewhat of a pain in the ass to the United States government. And the government is taking action in which it says we need to crack down on this. This should not be tolerated. The media has to remain free. That's my point. I don't want to belabor that point. But that's the point I'm trying to get at. If the government is cracking down on media, if media is not free to get across this perspective, if the media is not free to scrutinize and criticize the government, then you no longer have a free society. You have something else. You have something else. And to make the point clear, this is not, again, one party. This is both. This is both. During the Obama administration, you had this. This is Washington Post. Shredding the Constitution's Obama's attack on the media. The Washington Post. These guys are usually in the bag for Obama. Listen to the language they're using. Shredding the Constitution. Obama's attack on the media. The president hasn't attempted to distance himself from the Associated Press snooping campaign. To the contrary, he offered no apologies. To be blunt, he approved the most invasive breach of the First Amendment against any news organization in the history of the Republic. No president has tried this, and for good reason. We now have yet another media abuse story, and way much more severe. The Post breaks the story that the Obama administration indulged in excruciatingly invasive spying on James Rosen of Fox News, and in an unprecedented move, asserted that this news gathering is criminal. The Post reports. When the Justice Department began investigating possible leaks in classified information about North Korea in 2009, investigators did more than obtain telephone records and a working journalist suspected of receiving the secret material. They used security badge access records to track the reporter's comings and goings from the State Department, according to a newly obtained court affidavit. They traced the timings of his calls with the State Department security advisor suspected of sharing the classified report to obtain a search warrant for the reporter's personal emails. Moreover, the FBI agent involved in the affidavit asserted that there was evidence Rosen had broken the law, at the very least, either as an aider, abettor, or as a co-conspirator. The fact distinguishes his case from the probe of the AP Associated Press, in which the news organization is not the likely target. No administration has ever taken this stance. Let's go to more. I'm putting all of these in the bottom. Why is President Obama keeping the journalists in prison in Yemen? This was part of the other one I said. This is Committee to Protect Journalists, the Obama administration, and the press. United States President Barack Obama came into office pledging open government, but he has fallen short of his promise. Journalists and transparency advocates say the White House curbs routine disclosures of information and deploys its own media to evade scrutiny of the press. Aggressive prosecution of leakers of classified information and broadening electronic surveillance programs deter government sources from speaking to journalists. Understand, when Snowden came out with his revelation that the government was spying on pretty much everybody, including foreign countries, people who are supposed to be our allies, why didn't those nations take that stance when they found out that the United States government had spied on them? Like, they're freaking out about Russia. Why are they okay with us doing it? Why? Isn't that a foreign power invading their country in this kind of intimate way? But whatever. The United States, Obama, illegally spying all across the United States. And I'm saying illegal because by definition it was illegal. The judge said it was illegal. What effect do you think that has on journalists? Knowing that if you're talking to a source, and that source may be surveilled illegally by the United States government, and that may be used against you in a court hearing to put you in prison for espionage. You're a journalist. You're doing your job. You're doing investigative reporting, is what journalists are supposed to do in order to hold power accountable. And you can be prosecuted and put in prison by this particular president who used the Espionage Act in ways that it was never designed to be used to lock up whistleblowers who's getting across waste, fraud, and abuse by the United States government. What effect is that on media? Understand what I'm getting at. Let's keep going. In the Obama administration's in Washington, government officials are increasingly afraid to talk to the press. Those suspected of discussing with reporters anything that the government has classified as secret are subject to investigation, including lie detector tests, scrutiny of their telephone and email records. An insider's threat program being implemented in every government department requires all federal employees to help prevent unauthorized disclosures and information by monitoring the behavior of their colleagues. Think about this. It's like Stasi. I mean, one of the WikiLeaks documents made the point that the White House had implemented this program inside the White House in order to attack journalists, in order to block information from coming out the White House. This is making the point. They have an insider threat program where it requires all federal employees to help prevent unauthorized disclosures of information by monitoring the behavior of their colleagues. Essentially, look over the behavior of their colleagues. I'm looking over Bob's shoulder at all times. And Bob looking over my shoulder. And Tim's looking over his shoulder. I mean, think about this is what they were implementing. This is my point. This is attacking information getting out to the public. Understand why I say this is important. Where does the government's power reside? Philosophically, I'm not talking about how it works in real life. Where does it reside? Like, where's the strength of the government? When you see the man with the bat who says, if you don't do X, I'm going to hit you with this bat. That's not really where the strength of the government resides. The legitimacy of the government itself resides in this idea that the people themselves who are under that government give that government authority to do what it's doing. It's self-justifying. It's not self-justifying. The people themselves justify the existence of that government. We give our tax dollars, we give our support, and we make certain agreements that we would abide by certain laws, give or take, ish, in order to have certain other protections. My neighbor is not going to hit me in the head and take my wallet. Not typically. And if he does, there is a policeman with a bat and a gun that will shoot him. You keep somewhat of a civil society. You make certain agreements while at the same time giving up other freedoms. The government, however, having that power is contingent upon those same human beings. Those same human beings have to agree to some degree with what that government is doing. And if it doesn't agree with what that government is doing, the government has lost justification. It has lost legitimacy. If the Obama administration is blocking the capacity for the people who has this philosophical responsibility to hold the government accountable for the things that the government is doing, we can't have a Frankenstein monster just roaming around the world. No, we built it. We give our tax dollars to it. It is our responsibility to control it. Its size, what it decides to do, the powers that it decides to enact on itself or take for itself. That's us. That is our responsibility to hold that shit in check. Here's the question. How do you hold that stuff in check if you don't even know that stuff is taking place? How? How do you do something if you don't even know that something's taking place? This is why investigative journalism is so vitally important. This is why WikiLeaks is so vitally important. This is why whistleblowers should be protected. This is why all of these things are important. And this is why attacks on this, whether it's from the Trump administration, creating a list, just even saying that sounds gross. Or the Obama administration actively going after journalists using the law in ways that was not designed to be used. Both of those are problematic. This is not a problem for one or the other. This is both. This is both. I'm going to put these documents at the bottom. I suggest you read some of these because these are fascinating. Hey, look at this one. Obama administration reporters and crackdown on leaks. They're given a timeline of whistleblowers that the Obama administration targeted and went after more than any time in human history of the United States or the history of the United States, and used it in ways that was not designed to be used. First, there was the news that the Justice Department has secretly seized the telephone records of reporters at the Associated Press. A week later, reports that the department had investigated a Fox News reporter as a potential criminal for doing his job. Those actions, and possibly more, by President Barack Obama's administration are part of an unprecedented crackdown on classified national security leaks. And that has led journalists, First Amendment scholars, and groups that advocate for government transparency to question how much the White House values free and open press. The scope of this action calls into question the very integrity of the Department of Justice policies towards the press and its ability to balance on its own the police powers against the First Amendment rights of the news media and the public's interest in reporting on all manner of governmental conduct, according to the recent letter to Attorney General Eric Holder from 52 media organizations, including McClatchy. This should be apolitical. Julian Assange should be valued if you care about the press and you care about transparency in government. This is not a Democrat or Republican thing. Both of them are problematic. This boils down to us. Donald Trump is compiling a list that should terrify the shit out of you. But it should have also terrified you when Obama was doing shit like this. This is not about any one particular president. This is about whether or not, what do you want your government to do? How do you want your government to behave towards media? And do you want an aggressive media that is willing to go after government and expose what it's doing without fear of recrimination from that exact same government? Without an open and free and aggressive media, you do not have a democracy. You do not have a representative government. You have something else. Protect your media. That's my point. Let's see who's here. We have 97 people here. Oh, this is the wrong. Yeah, I started this. I was feeling myself. I started this without changing the information in the bottom of this. So guys, I apologize. And I'll put the articles at the bottom. I got in this morning and I just I'm gonna do the news, and I just started doing the news, and it didn't occur to me to change the bottom of the video title. So my bad. I'll come over with the title afterwards. My bad. I'm sorry. Obama was a Trojan horse. Obama was a Trojan horse. Now, Trojan horse, it depends on what you mean by Trojan horse. And yes, I know. Trojan horse has a specific definition in the context. I know. What I mean by that is, Obama was a Democrat. He was like Clinton. You voted for a Democrat. You got a Democrat. Politicians lie. Politicians use whatever they have at their disposal to get you to believe a certain thing. Truth is, the reason why you believe Obama is a Trojan horse has more to do with his skin color than anything else. He's black. He's going to be different. And then that soaring rhetoric, hope and change, and all that. But if he was just a regular, run-of-the-mill, white Democrat who was saying similar stuff, would you have had that same level of, oh, there's something different. I'm sorry. I do think race plays a part in this. I think it's a psyche thing. 2008, Obama wins. You have people left, right, or people on the left bawling their eyes up, thinking that, oh my God, this is a magnificent achievement. And it was. And he's going to be something fundamentally different. But challenge that part. Why do you think he's going to be something fundamentally different? Is it purely because of his rhetoric? Or is there some other quality that gives it an extra oomph that makes you think he's going to be different? I could be wrong. But I've spoken to more than one one person who said, I voted for him because he was black. I've had people say, look, I'm not necessarily into politics, but I thought he was going to be different because he was black. They're being honest. I can accept that. That's fine. Now, if you were doing that because of that, then yeah, he would seem like a Trojan horse. He's hiding something. What is he hiding? And what is he using to hide it? Like, is it skin tone of sorts? And then the thing that in him is something different. That's what that's kind of the point I'm getting at. Is it? Yeah, I don't want to go too far into it. I guess I feel like part of the Trojan horse thing boils down to we saw something, and in our heads we had this idea of him being a particular thing, and he wasn't that thing. And then you ask the question, well, wait a minute, well, why did you think he was going to be that thing that he wasn't? What about him? Trojan horse was a horse. It was an object. That object was enclosing something else. I'm making a point that the object, the horse in this case, was his race. His race. He leveraged his race in order to get for political effect. Yes, being black has a negative connotation to some degree when you're running in politics. There's a side of faction, let's say 20, 30% of the population, maybe it's 20%, that hates your guts just for you being you. Fair enough. But there are a lot more that love this idea of being able to say, I voted for that black man to be president. And I was there in 2008 when he was president of the United States. And there are a lot of lefties who thought to themselves, yes, it's going to be different. And at some point, they hit their head. Oh, it wasn't. It wasn't. Yeah. I was excited about Bernie because of policy, the same way Obama pretended to be progressive. Yeah. And that's the catch. One person was or is what the other person said he was and was not. And I suspect if you, how would you feel in that case? You talk about this hope and change stuff, and this other guy who came behind you actually believes it and is a true believer of it, and shows you up to be a fraud just because of his belief and his actual representing that particular thing. Yeah, I would imagine it is embarrassing. Obama kind of promised something different, but he ended up governing as a moderate Republican. That's the way he was a Trojan horse. Here's the thing, though. Obama, in one of those interviews, said he was a conservative. He says, yeah, a few years ago, I would have been considered a moderate conservative. That's what he is. He's a Republican. Your Democratic Party has moved so far to the right, it's been co-opted by Republicans. Now, some people don't realize that. Some people don't want to own up to that, but that's true. The moderate Republicans jumped into the Democratic Party. That's who you have. That's who's there. Me making the point that it's not one or the other, it's both, is because if Rand Paul ran against Jeb Bush, who am I going to vote for? I'm not going to vote for either. But Democrats continuously tell me you should vote for Jeb Bush. I think they're insane. I think they're insane. Obama promised hope and change. He took the last change we had in our pockets, hoping it wasn't a crook. Oh, that's hilarious. He promised hope and change, and he ended up taking the last change in our pockets. That's hilarious. I love that. I love that. All right, guys. I am not going to keep this one long because I have like another one that I want to do after this, and I think another one after this. So I'm probably going to do a few of these today. So I will see you guys probably in about 10, 20 minutes or so. Thanks, everyone. You guys have an awesome night. Oh, wait. Let me make sure. Yeah, okay. All right, guys. Have a good one. See you shortly.